service plazas. So is there a plan for how many of those will be established across the state, across the thruway, et cetera?
Currently, there are no plans to add additional welcome centers on the thruway system or thruway property.
Okay, thank you.
Following up a little bit on the food and the fuel integration, to the extent that the user really looks at the service offerings on the food and beverage side and the fuel, meaning price and so forth, to what extent will there be coordination there? Or for some reason, if the food service operator feels that the prices are too high and they're losing foot traffic there, and vice versa, is that something that the Thruway Authority would try to work through, or they're just completely separate and it is what it is?
Again, I think we would reiterate that right now there are two separate contracts and would have two separate provisions for pricing and products for sale. You know, if you have specific concerns or recommendations on how that would be addressed, you can submit that in writing. But right now, again, we're doing it as the separate provisions in each of the contract for products and for pricing.
Okay. Thank you.
Currently, there are some plazas that do not have C-stores with their gas stations. And I know there are two separate contracts, but looking forward, is there an appetite by the Thruway Authority to increase the number of C-stores as the RFP for the gas stations goes up again in 2027?
I think we would be addressing, excuse me, the need for those services when the fuel contracts when their term is up involved in that RFP.
I understand the statement that the land that the Thruway Authority owns is exempt from taxation. However, subject to a leasehold interest, any improvements built thereon would be subject to taxation by the local municipality. Am I correct?
I cannot say as to whether or not you're correct, but what I can say is that our statute provides only for a tax exemption to the property that is owned by the New York State Thruway Authority.
Are the current improvements that are on the service areas now owned by the Thruway Authority?
Yes.
Thank you.
I know the RFP says that the leasehold improvements become property of the authority, but is that as they are built? In short, is there a period where we could be taxed for building them, and then you get possession, or is it just they become your property and therefore are not taxable at the time they're built?
Yeah, I think your question about taxation of the leasehold improvements is one that we would want to consider further and see how whether it can be elucidated for you, because a leasehold, as you all know, is a separate property.
Sure.
It's going to be the property. The operator will have
do you have any further data to break down the sales and traffic numbers in terms of, you know, people entering the building or sales by different restaurants or concepts? Anything that can break that down?
Last exhibit 4, please.
Beyond the sales data that was included in there,
Okay.
you want a breakdown of each
Oh, right,
concept
right,
or
right.
each retail?
Yes.
Okay. If you have specifics that you like,
Traffic by days of the week, and hour. We were looking for any traffic of people going into the building versus just car traffic. And regarding sale, like, we'd be interested in a rent roll, if that's available. Any breakdown by restaurant concepts.
we do not have an hour or specific count of people entering, leaving the building, and we will have to regroup and respond in writing on the rest of your questions.
Are there any other questions at this time?
On the back.
One moment, please.
Georgiana's also on
Are the bids that are going to be due, are they going to be, are they required to be binding bids with proof of financing and construction contracts in place?
Can you repeat your question? I didn't quite hear that.
Sure. Will the bids that you do be binding bids with proof of financing and construction contracts in place? And is there a bid bond requirement?
We'll respond to that in writing. I think at the present time, I'm not recalling specifically that we have yet put in a bid bond, but I think it's best that we review your question and get back to you on that.
Go ahead.
Is the authority at liberty to give any information around historical, share any data and information around historical pain points, specifically around cost of ownership, operations, or transportation and access? Would be useful. And this is something that you don't necessarily need to answer now, but I think that all of us, the proposers, the cost of ownership, operations, and transportation and access. Yeah. That's the point.
Georgina.
Bid question, has the Thruway Authority considered a stipend for unsuccessful bidders?
At this time, I don't believe there is any plan to proceed with a stipend to the successful bidder. Oh, the unsuccessful bidder, or to the unsuccessful one.
Will a list of today's attendees be made available as part of your Q&A?
Yes, it will be. It will be attached to the answers. questions?
If some of these proposals are in fact successful, they may require additional parking. Can you address through an answer perhaps how the process, if a vendor wishes to have additional parking space in that process, if land is accessible and if the Thruway Authority will help in that process to acquire additional land? Also, 30 years is a long period of time. Any additional locations the winning vendor might want to propose, what that process might look like.
When you say additional locations,
Yeah.
I mean, because the contract is for all 27 service areas, so can you be specific?
Right. In operating the 27, after 4 or 5 years, the vendor may say, well, boy, if we put another one, we're at a choke point because we landlocked, we don't have an additional parking. If we have another location down the road, we know that we will generate additional revenue for the state. What would the process be to submit that? Would you guys be receptive to that? Would the department be receptive to the idea?
As interstate highway system, we are required to follow FHWA guidelines, and there are very specific guidelines with regard to commercial sales on an interstate. And we are currently restricted to the existing 27 areas that are grandfathered in. So at this time, I don't think we would contemplate any new locations, or FHWA would grant approval for any new locations.
How about adding space or additional land to the existing locations?
That would be something we haven't discussed it, but I think the same revisions would apply in that what is currently grandfathered now is generally the area that we own. So I think new areas can be restricted as well by those same provisions.
Correct. I would also refer to the responsibility maps in the RFP, so you can see, the authorities, the land, excuse me, and the food lease space from there.
I want to add one thing. I know that if we are very much tethered to the footprint of these facilities, but we have provided that if it is found that some land that we make additional land available that becomes part of the facilities, that would become part of the premises for which operator is responsible, and that's in Appendix B. So that's slightly different from what you asked, but I know that that's built in now. It is important to be very aware, as my colleague Elizabeth Novak said, of the FHWA regulations.
Can you just please confirm that the USD, DOT, or FHWA prohibition is really just on level 3 service plazas, but not for the others?
The prohibition of commercial of over-the-counter sales?
Yes, it does not include like level 1 or some level 2. Is that correct?
No, we are, the current 27 service areas are grandfathered in at these locations.